Hello and welcome to Around the Block. I'm your host, Tatiana Shaba, and today I have with me Stephen
Hello.
and Nick.
Good evening, good day, whatever time it is you're listening to this.
How is everybody doing? Is everybody back at work?
Yeah, today. Not today. Monday this week. Back to work.
Yeah, I was
Nick?
back from the 4th of January, so I've been in the full swing of things for a while now.
Oh, I don't want to brag about it, but I'm not back till the 19th, which is lovely. But let's get straight into A-League news, shall we? Because we actually have a game I want to talk about this week. Oh my God. We did a win. But before we get on to that, let's have a look at some A-League news, the domestic transfer system. PFA responds with, this won't work with a salary cap. Who wants to talk about the domestic transfer system? Are we even going to, is that what we're going to get into?
No, well, it's the FFA or FA, whatever they're calling themselves these days. They're going through the 11 principles that they want to go through. John Johnson's, is John Johnson or James Johnson? I always forget.
JJ.
He's got all this stuff he wants to do, which is really good. He's actually going through it every week. He's doing his updates. This is one of the main things on the 11 principles, domestic transfer system. We've been talking about this for years on this pod and just in football circles, right? But obviously the PFA come out with their concerns, and I agree with some of the things they said. Basically, a salary cap is not compatible with a domestic transfer system because, for obvious reasons. So, but this is just a white paper. They're waiting for responses from all the relevant parties and all that sort of stuff. So it won't take long before I think this comes in, but it's just getting everyone to agree to it, basically, and then they'll move on to the next thing, which will be whatever promotion, relegation, or something, or second division, and all that sort of stuff that's on the 11 principles.
I mean, as a club that's put so much money into a youth development academy, I want to be able to get some money back out of that. So hopefully they can.
Exactly, right?
You got guys, yeah.
Those had their academy at one stage, and they're probably still making money off Ryan, like going what's his name? I forget, Matty Ryan. Like they got money from him, transfer, then the on-sale clause and that sort of stuff. There's no point putting $30 million into an academy if you're not going to get money out of a return, right? And I mentioned this last year and in my articles and that stuff as well. So I'm pretty sure the clubs will be pushing for it because, again, they've got the PLA now. They want to make money now. So the transfer system, everywhere else in the world has it, and it's holding us back.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the one thing I was most excited about. I'm like, sweet, we can start making money off our players.
The thing also is that they can't be complaining that players are being pinched by other clubs, because if clubs are actually putting bids in there, and if the owners or managers say, yeah, cool, we'll sell this player for X amount of dollars, then fans can't be shitty anymore, because that's football, and that's how it's worked for however long transfers have been in place in world football. So,
yeah, unfortunately, mutual termination window might slowly go away.
Yeah, we're gonna miss it.
Yeah, but at least the Wanderers got in with a few sneaky signings before we had to start paying for them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're still going to get those mutual terminations anyway, right? Like it's still part of football, but that hashtag mutual termination window is going to go away.
Speaking of signings, we spent a solid 40 minutes, I think, talking about how we had too many midfielders in the team last week, and guess what? We signed a midfielder.
Yeah, a visa signing, Jordan Much, for 6 months. Nick, tell me, like, in my head, 6 months for a visa signing, man, it's like.
Waste of money.
He's got to come here and he's got to go into quarantine, and by the time he gets up to speed, we'll probably still have 20 games to play anyway, the way things are going. But I don't know. It's another Vancouver alumni, Robinson's mates. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, but that's not my biggest worry. My biggest worry is that he signed, the last club he was signed to was a Norwegian club. He injured himself before he even started playing, before the season started. So this guy hasn't actually played a proper game since 2019?
That's fantastic.
So is he like the new Majewski, is he? So...
Yeah, that's pretty much, he had zero game time. Like he got injured before he started last year, got injured before the season even started, and then was released in September.
What a career for Jordan. Much ado about nothing. I mean, I love how they propped him out, that he's come from the Premier League. He's showed him of him playing for Crystal Palace. And I remember him playing for Crystal Palace, and fair enough, in a decent midfielder, didn't he? I think it was at Bournemouth or something for a bit before he left there, based on the jerseys that I saw him wearing. So I think it was Bournemouth and Palace, but all the same still, if he's been playing outside of what we call the top 5 leagues in Europe, and he's been in the Norwegian leagues, and he's been injured and things like that, why the hell are we propping up a player coming here for 6 months who hasn't played football regularly just because he's played in the Premier League for a few seasons? And fair play to him. There's a bit of cred there, but if you haven't come straight from the Premier League, I think you're basically just blowing smoke because they're trying to prop up a player, making it as though, yeah, this guy's Premier League, he's played tough nuts and all that sort of stuff, and then he's like, no, he actually hasn't played in a good while. So, like Steve, I think you're ambitious with the whole quarantine and isolation and that. Good luck if he's trying to get him up to the standards of playing in the climates of Australia.
I mean, I wouldn't. How many players are we getting straight from the Premier League anyway?
Don't know.
That's not my.
How much of players are we got? What are we gonna?
No, he said unless you're coming straight from the Premier League. I'm like, it's not like we're actually getting regularly players straight from the Premier League. We are getting them sort of after they've done like a round in 2 or 3 other leagues.
Exactly.
And from what the Wanderers put up, like the highlights look great. And it looks like at his peak he was fantastic. So I mean, I hope he fits well into the team. I don't know where we want him to fit in the team. Like, where do you see him anyway? Like, whose position do you think he's going to be fighting for?
I don't think it's that simple. Is it on being straight swap? Like I said, we've had a bunch of games already postponed. I look at the apps, and every day there's 2 or 3 games postponed. Like, we've had 1 game or 2 games this weekend, right? There's going to be a bunch of games if the borders ever open, and so he might come at that time when it's like the crazy season. Like, we're going to have a game like on a Saturday and on a Tuesday, like every week for like 2 months, I think, at this rate.
So I've got some info for you. So he was at Birmingham City 2008 to 2012. He was on loan a couple of times at some different clubs at that point. Played at Cardiff City for a few seasons, scored 7 goals in 57 appearances. QPR, he was at Palace, played there for 4 years. In the meantime, he went on loan as well a few times, Reading and Vancouver, as rightfully said, couple of goals there. Gyeongnam, he was there for 8 games. He had 1 appearance at Alisund last year in 2020, and now he's coming to the Western Sydney Wanderers. So there you go, Tats, spot on, coming from injury, and they're hyping him up as though he's come straight from the Premier League, at the age of 30 or something. The guy's 29, so it's not to say he's past his footballing years, but what form is he in? Like, why are we getting someone who's probably not going to be fit for 6 months? What's the point?
Yeah, when we let go all these youth guys last week or 2 weeks ago, right?
Yep. But I was looking at that article and based on from what I saw from Mo Adams and Pagden, that article that came out, a lot of them kind of left to concentrate on studies. I'm not sure if that was the situation with all 3 of them. Yeah. But yeah, Fabien Monde, yeah. But I don't know if but that they kind of left football to concentrate on their studies. So I'm not sure if it was something that the club wanted to let go of them, but maybe they weren't seeing that their game time was getting up, or it was maybe more important.
Right? They're like, okay, I'm not getting game time, and maybe I'll go study. Which I don't understand. You're 19, 20, and you're going to give up professional football to study. I get that, but when you have guys like Chiellini at 36, 37 doing an MBA at the same time as playing for Juve, it's like part time. Like, I'm surely these 20-year-olds can do it. Like, then you have 1 session a day. You have a 2-hour training session. You can study in the afternoon or at night. Like, you don't need to go all in one way or the other. Like, I understand setting up for your future post-football, but there's other ways of doing it. So it's like someone talked to him and said, you're not going to be a professional footballer. Maybe you should concentrate on something else.
Maybe their mums got into their heads. But who was our accountant, season 1? Depuzo? Was he just like a full-time accountant? And he's like, nah, I'll come back.
Sacked it.
Yeah, exactly. Your Papa's like, come back. It's like, all right, I'll come back. I'll win the Champions League for you, and then I'll go.
Yeah, the books can wait.
That's right. But, yeah, that's a different story. But yeah, I don't know. It's just strange. They might make more money in the NPL. They could go in the NPL and get payday every week, and then work elsewhere, and you can make some decent money. But you're almost giving up.
Get some game time.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right. Well, we've got Jordan Much, but we might have a problem on our hands in a couple of weeks. So Simon Cox's partner is pregnant and almost due to give birth. And now the question is, that's his first child. So the question is he going to return back to the UK for her?
Is this a bossy article before the derby or what? Like,
nah, this was based on yeah, right. No, this was actually based on the presser. I mean, they asked him in the presser post match, "What are you going to do if Coxie leaves?"
Good question. I mean, if he does go, then I think Steve will be pleased that in one half, then we don't have to worry about what Cox does in this team. But then on the other side of that coin, it's like, okay, what do we do in place of Cox? Because if we've got the midfielders, we know that, but we still don't have that number 9. So as we said, instead of signing a number 9, we've signed another central attacking mid who might not be fit until the season comes to a head, if he's going to be fit at all. And I hope he does. It's not to say, I don't want people thinking I'm speaking negative of Jordan much, but when you're coming from not having played for basically a whole year, getting back to some sort of fitness to even start a match, that's a bit of a challenge, let alone in the A-League in a whole nother climate. So yeah, that's a whole nother story. But Cox leaving, that leaves some positions to be filled within our squad as well. And granted, we do have some midfielders on the bench, so you might see maybe Troisi, Abini, and Muller starting more often with Kamau, maybe rotating with someone at a wing-back position. And then you still have a couple of players off the bench you can bring on there. But I still think we need a number 9. And if Cox goes, then that might make the midfield a little bit more easier to understand or play with. You're not chopping and changing as much. But yeah, replacing someone like Cox straight away, I don't know if Robinson's done any work to do that.
Yeah, look, Cox is, like you said, Nick, that where's he fit in the team? Him and Muller have a good understanding, I noticed, in this game and against Newcastle Jets. They rotate well. They find each other all the time, and they set up the goal together, right? Tate Russell's goal. So there is definitely a spot for Cox. I'm not saying there's no spot for him. I was just curious about where he fits in this system. But for him to, like, for that question to come up, it was like, you knew she was pregnant, obviously, when you came back and did quarantine and you're watching YouTube on the treadmill and all that sort of stuff, and I gave you shit about it on Twitter. But yeah, I don't understand why this wasn't discussed already, and how this, like, how is this only a question now, and the question's raised, like, are you going back? And if he goes back, he's not coming back here. There's no way he's going for the birth of his child and then coming back here and do another two weeks of quarantine, and then coming back in March, April or something. It depends how much paternity leave we give, paid parental leave for the Wanderers. I don't understand. It's like he's basically going to give up the season unless he finds a gig locally, like in some championship side or something like that. It's really strange.
That's just it, right? You gotta think that. I mean, they brought it up. Obviously, they're trying to create some sort of story, but there must have been a conversation. Like, if I go, the chances of, because it's not like he was here when things were all good and gravy. Like, he decided to come back in the middle of a pandemic. So it was like, if I go, the chances of me coming back aren't going to be too high. Or I mean, granted, he thought.
We signed him for 2 years, didn't we? Something like that.
Doesn't he only have 6 months left on his contract?
It was a year and a half initially. It was a year and a half. I think technically he's still got the end of this. Well, he came in December 2019? January 2019. Sorry, and then wait, now I'm confused.
It was
last season because
it was 2020. Yeah, so 19. Yeah. So December, January 19, 21 on the other. And I think it was here for like a season and a half. So he's still got till the end of this season. So it looks like he's shipping up to Boston, for those who know the term, the song, a little bit earlier than expected, or what he's supposed to for his contract or whatever.
I mean, to be fair, he probably thought he would have played a few more games before she was ready to give birth. He probably didn't think he'd only have played 2 games so far, considering what's happened with us here.
Do we know if he goes, when it would be? Or was it just like soon, right? Like within the next month or something?
I don't know. Based on the press, though, like Robinson was saying that she's due. I think she's due in the next they're like, do you know when she's due? I'm like, why would he know when his player's wife is due? Like, this is not. I don't think it's like discussed. Where it's like, yeah, mate. Well, she's like 36 weeks in now. Like, but
that might determine when he goes, though. That might determine when he goes. It might give him a bit of a timeline as to how much longer he's got in the A-League, which I can understand why they're asking. But I take your point. It's a bit of an odd question to ask someone. Like, what business is it of yours? All you need to know is that I'm going soon, and how soon you'll find out when I'm not here.
Well, they did. Well, it's not that they didn't ask Cox, but like Robson was saying, look, if he decides to go, he decides to go. I'm a family man, and like he's like, personally, I'd want to be there. It's not like first kid. You know what I mean? You don't want to miss that. But he's like, but also he's a professional footballer and he's paid to play professional football. So if he decides to stay, I respect that too. So I think he'll have like full support of hopefully the squad. But Like, I think now that you've mentioned it, I think the conversation would have been had, and hopefully he's maybe come here with a decision that with him being at peace with possibly missing birth.
Yeah, it's a strange one because the whole travel restrictions just puts a massive spanner in the works, right? So if this was last year, it'd be, I'd be gone for a week and I'd come back, or a week or two and I'd come back. I miss 1.5 games or something, 2 games, and I'll be back, and that's fine. But now it's like you go, you're missing a month because I don't know if there's quarantine over there in the UK as well, and then obviously the birth, and we're missing 6 weeks at least, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's a good chunk of the season.
So we need to replace him, and that's one of the ATB feedbacks as well. Is like, if he does go, who do we get?
Yeah, it was.
Well,
can we get anybody at this point? Do we still have a January transfer window? What's that?
There's still a January transfer window, but you have free agents like Apostolos Giannou, who's a Socceroo, and he's like got no play. He's been released, and that came up on Twitter as well last week with amongst our circles, like the Wanderers circles, like he's a free agent. We'd be silly not to look at him, right? Bring him home and get him to play games. He can force himself back into the Socceroo squad, like what Juric is trying to do in Adelaide, right? So that's a no-brainer for me. The guy's Aussie, right?
Yeah.
You don't have any of these visa problems or any of that stuff. He's young. He'll be hungry. He scores goals. That's a no-brainer for any A-League club to go for him. If he's interested in coming back, that's a different story. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's not interested I would be surprised if he's not interested because Europe's a mess at the moment and Australia is relatively okay, from COVID compared to the rest of the world. So it's definitely an option for these guys. Hence why half these UK are coming here, right? Like Doran's came here as well. There's an article today about the derby and him, watching Old Firm derby and stuff with no one in the stands, and then you come here and it's like there's actually people in the stands. It's like, so I think the A-League's a bit of enticing for some of these overseas players because the travel restrictions aren't they are, but not so bad as it is in Europe.
The A-League isn't.
Yeah, I mean it's the lure of like game time and a relatively normal life and somewhat of a crowd in the stadium. So that's what they play for, right? But before we start talking about what he had to say in the derby, let's have a look at a game. And we did a win. Yes, we did. Let's have a look at the starting lineup first. So it's pretty much the same starting lineup as last week. The only difference is we got Aquilina debuting, great debut, coming in for Georgievski, and then he started Muller instead of Ibini. What did you guys think? Oh, actually, it was pretty much that. What did you guys think of the starting lineup?
I was right. I just want to put it out there. I was right.
That he wasn't going to start Ibini?
I told you he'd bench him and bring him on for the last 20 minutes. I thought he might actually do that, only because I thought Ibini looked a little bit sluggish towards the end of that second half in that game before he got subbed off as well. I think he came off for Muller. But I also thought that going back to Newcastle, he was going to get a fair bit of heat, and I think it would have been easier for him to maybe just do the last 20 rather than start and be copping all that non-stop throughout the whole game. Granted, when he did come on in the second half, he did have a few shaky moments. He should have buried that basic one-on-one that he had. But in saying that though, he was nervous, but you could see maybe that crowd sort of egged him on a little bit, and he actually started to hold up the ball, play little 1-2s, get around the defense in the midfield. And I actually thought he did okay once he came on, but I think his finishing still has a bit of work towards it. But I thought the starting lineup was pretty decent. I thought it was wise to start Aquilina instead of Georgievski with Russell on the wing, and those two young boys absolutely smashed it for us. If you watched the live stream that I had for that game, I was just singing the praises of Russell throughout that whole match. Just everything he did was just good. Did get sort of caught out a couple of times. Yule on the other end was very good for Newcastle, so I think we can't take that away from Yule, because I thought he gave us a bit of problems on the flip side. But I thought Russell was great, good for him to get himself a goal as well, second goal in the A-League. But our defence looked decent. Obviously, we conceded that shitty free kick that arguably probably wasn't a free kick to begin with, maybe, if you want to really go into the semantics of it all. But apart from that, we defended as though we were defending a 1-goal lead in the final. And I know it's a bit cheesy and shit to say in the second game against all sorts Newcastle Jets, but you need that grit and determination if you want to get something out of this league, because we've seen it over the many years.
Yeah, I think to answer your original question, Tat, I think this is probably our best 11 on paper. And the other guys like Abini Yeboah are great guys off the bench. Adoherty had a good game off the bench as well. But the problem with Abini Yeboah in this game, they came on when we were kind of chasing the game, and they basically had to defend a lot and work hard off the ball. And with the ball as well, Yeboah actually was impressive in fighting for the ball halfway and keeping that fight up and pressing high and just not cheaply losing the ball and drawing fouls. And Abini was like defending as well in our box and trying to draw the fouls as well. So they didn't come on to finish to close the game out when Abini should have, but they definitely fought to the end. The team as a whole, like this was like old school Wanderers, man. Like fighting to the end. This is what we've wanted. Hashtag mentality from Marcus Babbel about, this is what we've wanted for 4 or 5 years now. And finally we saw it. Like Nicky said, yeah, it's a Newcastle, all sorts of Newcastle team, but it doesn't matter, right? That the momentum was against them, or was for them after they scored that dodgy goal and or dodgy free kick. And we just had to roll up the sleeves and just fight to the very end. And it was really good to see. And they were not going to get through. And the whole back line, the back five, and the whole team just put a massive shift in. And this is what builds your momentum in moving into the next game, which is the derby, then Central Coast and all this sort of stuff, right? We saw these signs against MacArthur. We just didn't put the goals away. This time we put the goals away. We put 3 away. One of them was disallowed. Like that was bullshit to be honest. This is the mentality that we've been wanting. It looks like Carl Robinson's getting the guys on board of his vision, and maybe they're actually watching that 1 minute clip of him doing his little speech that someone wrote for him. What have you done for this team? And this is what they're doing. And let's just say the baby Wanderers, if you want to call them, they all had a blinder. Every single one of them is like they're proving why they should be in this team. And again, Tas Mudakudus should have started in his team 2-3 years ago, and he's had 2 massive games. And this guy, I said last year, he's our future captain if he stays with us. He's already, I think, captaining some of the Olyroos games and things like that. The guy's a leader, and he hasn't put a foot wrong. And McGowan's even stepped up. Like we as a captain, he's like taking control now. Our whole back line is doing great at the moment. Like next game is a massive test. Aquilina has pushed Georgieski off onto the bench, and I think he did it, Nick, because of we talked about last week. Like Georgieski doesn't have the legs for 90 minutes, right? These 2 young guys, they can go up and down all day, and they both had massive games. And Aquilina should have scored a couple goals as well.
Bummed when he missed that chance. He had that back post in the first half, could have slid in there and got himself a goal on debut, but maybe wanted to hit it with the other foot. But aside from that, at one moment of the game, I think in the first half, I was yelling at my monitor saying, what the hell is Tas doing? He's our furthest player forward. Like, why is he basically playing striker? So I don't know what the hell happened there, but I mean, if you can go all the way forward and then go back and defend and then start another counterattack or whatever, same with Aquilina on the other side, man, I'm all for it, man. I said it. If we're going to play with wingbacks, we need wingbacks that can run up and down. It's one thing to be defensive and attacking, or to do both of them. It's another thing to actually get into those positions for you to actually do those certain things. If you can get into the position first and foremost, then you can do your next job. If you can't get into your position, no matter how good a defender or attacker you are, then you're just being useless on the pitch. So credit for them bombing up and down and getting where they needed to go. And on the defense as well, I think, me personally, I wasn't one of these people that laughed when I saw Ziggy Gordon sign for us from the Mariners. I thought, oh, he's a defender. I mean, he's come from the Mariners, so I don't know, he must be desperate to leave, or he must be, cheap or whatever. I mean, these last 2 games, I've actually seen that guy get so fired up just from preventing a cross from coming in and just taking the ball out for a corner, slide tackles, defensive blocks, all these things that defenders need to do. And when he does it, he's just so proud of himself. He's just ready to just smash a bottle of whiskey just for stopping a cross from coming in. Tas, he had a few good moments as well in that game. He had that toe poke, just literally the full stretch millimeters, stuck that leg out just to divert the ball from going in off the back post for one of the Newcastle players rather. And McGowan, I said it in our first game against MacArthur, you don't notice him doing much. And that's not a bad thing, and that's a good thing. If he's just doing the normal thing, clearing the balls, clearing the lines, making sure everyone's knows their positions. That's not a bad thing. As soon as you start saying, well, he's done that wrong, he's done that wrong, he's done that wrong, that's when you start building a case of them not being as good. But for the moment, touch wood, they've been pretty decent. But as you said, this weekend's going to be a whole nother game altogether. But we're on a streak at the moment, 2 wins and 1 draw. I don't want to say it too early just yet, but there's a bit of momentum on our side.
We're going to say we're undefeated.
I am.
With the wingbacks, I noticed they started a lot more forward this game, so they were in the box so many times. These two guys, and they were like whipping in crosses. They were playing almost as wingers, not wingbacks. That is all well and good for some teams that afford you that space. But I'm a bit worried with Sydney with their wingers, like with Ryan Grant, who goes forward as well. Like, who's going to pick him up? Are these guys going to be chasing, going up and down as much, or are they going to rely on someone like Doran to slide across to pick up Grant? But knowing the way the A-League refs are and the way Grant is, Doran's will end up getting sent off and not Grant. So we've got to be careful in these sort of games. Like, I'm all well and good for Russell and Aquilina to be so far up and get into the box a lot, but they've got to be careful because Sydney's always been good in transition and very quick to start a counter attack. So I wonder, obviously Robertson's paying attention to that sort of stuff, but we've got to be careful with getting caught in transition, like from Sydney. So I know we're digressing to the next game, but you look at one game and like the coaches say, this game is done. We celebrate it tonight. Now tomorrow's like the next game. We'll worry about the next one because we've got the 3 points to moving on, right?
I mean, before we move on to the next game, there's just a few things I want to touch on. Like Ziggy Gordon, man, what a body on the line type of player. Like getting to see him the way he defended, and then, man, a goal from a set piece is so sweet that we haven't seen in so long. It made me so happy.
I can't remember the last time we scored off a corner.
Honestly, I was so surprised. I'm like, did we score from a set piece? That and the fact that both the other goals, even the disallowed, were like shoot fucking goals, which was like such a joy to watch. Man, it was good to watch the team this time around. It was very satisfying to watch the team, and I just want to give a shout out to Robinson just for a mentality, but youth mentality, like the fact that when he came to the club, Aquilina didn't even have a professional contract, but he was just like, man, I just saw this kid and he was just non-stop going for it. Like, he's one of the hungriest kids I've ever seen. When I came in, I was like, right, clean slate. I don't know what was before me, but you can start under me, kind of thing. And like he said there's nothing against Rojevski, but I need fresh legs. Like, he's obviously he's very much thinking ahead about how many games we're going to be playing in a row and making sure he's got a really good rotation policy. But for me, seeing Aquilina and Russell, I mean, you mentioned that Margush he was save of the week, but we also got goal of the week. Tay Russell's goal of the week as well.
How good was that? Goal and save of the week. And Margush, shout out to him because that was a great save. And I cheered when that happened too. Like, that was going in. And he's stepping up to be that number one. And he's considered a deflected free kick. And then this week, another set piece, right? So that's the only thing he's got to work on. I think the set pieces, because sometimes he comes flying out for a punch, doesn't really get to it, and things like that with corners. He's a bit in no man's land. But as a shot stopper, I've seen some good things from him. And the kid's young. He's always quick to release the ball, doesn't hold it for ages. They're always trying to get people in the counter attack. So, I think it's his to lose pretty much, the number one spot.
Well, he pulled off that save, I think it was against Yule, and then also I think Najareen had a few bites at him too. But it's just good to see that when the ball does come at him, he doesn't sort of freeze. He actually does move towards it. Yes, the free kick, you can argue whether it was a free kick or not in the first place. I don't think it was. No. But, we've seen referees do some really shitty things in this week in the A-League. MacArthur FC, Wellington. You know what I mean? So,
man.
Don't know what the hell's going on.
No, it was a shitty call.
It was a shit. Stephen Lucas, VAR.
Man.
What the fuck?
And they admitted they got it wrong. And then in the match review panel, they changed They changed it. So, no, it's now for this. It's for this.
I wish they just wouldn't do that. Honestly, that is just especially when you're the team on the receiving end of that, and you're just like, oh, whoops, we messed up.
Yeah.
3 days later, cheers, mate. Yeah.
Back to the thing. Well, I mean, not to divert too much, but even Michael Oliver just the other day came out about the whole Pickford Van Dijk incident that had Van Dijk injured, didn't send Pickford off for Everton in the derby because they were looking at the offside. Like, oh, we didn't even know that the red card was an option. We were just looking at the offside. He's like, yeah, we got that one wrong. It's like, no shit, man. You're a referee. Like, surely there are things you can do in the game that are different to what's actually just within the play. I mean, you send people off for off the ball and out of play incidents. Why would this be any different? But anyways,
I actually know what you're talking about, Nick. I actually watched that game. The only appeal game.
There you go. There you go. Robbed, mate. We were robbed. But anyways, back to this. It was nice to see a goalkeeper that maybe we're not as nervous with. And interesting to know, Vedran, don't want to read too much into it, but he was watching MacArthur and Wellington on the weekend, so keep a lookout on that one.
Probably lives down there, doesn't he?
Yeah, probably.
Got half the land package down
That's
there.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Don't read too much into it, but he was there. Yeah, he is.
I think he's a boy originally, yeah.
Yep.
Also, we've spoken for 25 minutes. I haven't mentioned Baby Bacchus. The guy was a machine in this game
What
again. I don't want to go for every single player because everyone had a good game, but Bacchus, I really noticed in this game, and we talked about it in the preseason match. Like, where's his role? What's he going to be? Is he going to be holding? Is he going to be a central mid or attacking mid? I think with Doran's there, sitting right next to the defenders, it gives Bacchus that room to move. Bacchus does win a lot of the balls, but he seems to get a lot of the ball now, and he's starting to glide past players and starting to open up the channels and all that. And even the commentators are noticing him now, and they never normally talked about him. But in this game and in the MacArthur game as well, they started talking about all these number 6s and number 8s coming through the ranks, and they pretty much said Bacchus is number 1 at the moment. Like, he's a sure sign for the Olaroo squad. And so we said it as well, like him and Tass and Russell, these sort of guys need to have a massive season to go to the Olympics. And Bacchus is killing it at the moment. Like, he scored last week. No, he didn't score last week.
Almost did.
He should have scored last week.
Yep.
But and he could have scored this goal with Tate. He was right next to Tate, but he went past him, and Tate had the shot instead. It was great, man. Like, I'm watching this guy. He's been with us now for a number of years, and he's first name on the team sheet now. Like, he's not going to get pushed out by much. All these other guys, he'll only get pushed out after he gets his 5 yellow cards or in his arrest because we're playing in 3 days' time or stuff like that. The guy's number 1 on the team sheet, and he's killing it in the midfield.
He's becoming a midfield general. And it goes back to what I said in our pre-season pod as well. Like, we're talking about captains, whatever. And I brought it out there. If there was a player that I would select as a captain, it would be Bacchus, and that might give him a different approach to how he plays his game. Maybe he won't be as rash going through the midfield, maybe a little bit more conservative, a little bit more calculated. But for the moment, let him just keep what he's doing because he's still in his early 20s, hadn't even hit mid-20s yet, so the guy's still got years ahead of him. And if we were touting up his older brother as being a great thing for us, and we always said, no, the younger brother's better, and there's also a younger brother as well to come through, so... Is
there a baby Bacchus?
I believe there is, yes. So we will see another Bacchus come through.
Baby Bacchus the third.
Yeah, he's born in 98, June 98. So he's turning 23 this year.
There you go. So he's early 20s. He's still got plenty of years ahead of him. Plenty.
Yeah. So I don't. The whole Much signing, people were seeing that as a sign of us releasing Bacchus or him going on another offer. I find that really hard to believe this season, maybe next season, because of the whole Olympic thing, and he'll want to get as much game time as possible. There's no point going to another team overseas somewhere with all this uncertainty when you might not get game time when you're in the Olaroo squad, right? At the moment, just keep playing what you're playing. You're in the Olaroo squad. Why would you risk that by going somewhere else to chase this dream that doesn't always happen? Like, we have to concede that Bacchus won't be here for very long because he's reaching that trajectory. He's going so well. But we just need to sign him long enough so we get a transfer fee for him. So if he goes overseas to Korea or Japan and something like, he might be better in those sort of leagues, or Belgium or Holland or something like that. Let's make sure we've got him under a few-year contract and we actually get a decent money for him, right? Because I know we put a $1 million price tag on him last year, so he didn't leave. We should be getting that sort of money or more for him, because we created this guy.
Sit in him.
Yeah.
So we want the money. We want the on-sale clause for two more signings or something. So when he moves to a big club, we get the cash, the return. That's how these things work.
And the buyback clause as well. We get him back on the cheap.
Yeah, when he's like 35 and he needs to retire, right?
100%. Bring him back home. Bring him home to roost. Come on, come back.
So yeah, so
Well,
we've gone
that's just
through
it. Yeah.
every player. So
No, I was just gonna say we should just make the most of these young ones as much as we can while they can't get out the country.
yeah, exactly right.
Lock
we
him
should
down
keep playing them.
in every single way possible. Just lock him down completely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like go back to this game and then we'll go on to the next one just based on this. So Robinson said, like, for this game, he said, how do I break down a team I helped build? And then he goes, I went midfield heavy to control the game. Obviously, he had a lot more insight into this team than he will have in the other teams in the league. So naturally, like, we did have a bit of an upper hand on that. But going in against an EFC now, it's a derby, yes. They also haven't played a game in the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure if that is actually at a disadvantage. They haven't played. They had the one game and then they've had like 3 games postponed.
Yeah,
They've had
something
2
like
games. 2 weeks to recover and get ready for this game.
Hmm.
So that could be either or, right? It could be good because they'll be fresh, but bad because they've only played 1 game and we've played 2 games. We've played every week, so we're fresh. We've got a combination starting to happen. You know, we're match fit. Those guys, they won against who they play,
Wellington,
right?
yeah, 2-1.
But you know they've had 2 weeks to recover, but they can still be a bit rusty.
Yeah, that's
2
that's
weeks
the
to
thing.
recover from 1 game is nothing. Like, 3rd game into the season, having 2-week break means absolutely nothing. So I actually think that they're going to be at a disadvantage, or at least I hope so. How do you think he's going to pull up a lineup against Sydney FC?
I don't know. Stephen brought up the point of playing so high up. You don't want to play so high up against Sydney, even though they don't have Lafondra, who's gone. They've brought back the fantastic youth prospect in 36-year-old Bobo back to Sydney FC.
Back Colonel Lobo.
Yep, being Sheriff Lobo. So he's come back, and he's not going to be fit. I think he's in quarantine at the moment or something, but he probably won't be back till the start of February. So we don't have to worry about him scoring goals against us just yet.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just yet, he will probably most likely be back for 2 other Sydney derbies.
Don't we have
this
another
season.
derby in February or something?
Yeah, something dumb like
Yes,
that.
we do.
Yeah.
So, in saying that, though, they do have still some good midfielders, but I think their age surely has to come into play at one point or another when they've got a defensive lineup that are at least 34, 35 plus. They do have still decent midfielders. Let's not kid ourselves. Ninkovic is still a great player, even though he's like 35 as well. The guy's still quick on his feet. I think Lafondra for them is a bit of a miss, though, because he basically broke the lines for them a lot of the time. They would defend deep and just spring a ball over the top, and Lafondra just could always get himself in the right space at the right time and spring a counter-attack. Barbarouses is there. You know, he can still do something for you. I think... other player, his name escapes me, Bahaja as well. He's still quick, so he can still do something for him on the counter-attack. So I don't think we're going to go as attacking as we have been or as we were against Newcastle. But all the same, I do think that we also have the players who can counter their defence as well, should they come towards us. If they play the game in our half, we can spring a counter-attack. If we push in their half, they can spring a counter-attack on us. So I think it's going to be one of those cagey matches where I don't think Corica is going to go hell for leather, because he knows we've got pace, and Abini playing again, potentially starting against his former team as well. I think there could be something in that too. I hope, at least.
Yeah, look, I think the age factor that you mentioned will come into effect more later in the season when the games start coming thick and fast. At the moment, it's not going to affect them against us because they've had 2 weeks to recover. So I think everyone will be firing and ready for this game. At our old stadium of ANZ, even though Graham Arnold said it was their home first because they played 1 game there or something, there's going to be about 20,000 people there, they reckon. Ticket sales about 15 to 20,000. I'm not sure. What's the capacity limits? Is it 25% now or is it 50%? I don't know.
Was it 30?
25.
Was it 30%, is it?
That's about...
So-
What? I don't know. They keep changing it.
Yeah.
It was
every day
30%
something
before we finished up the season last year.
Okay. So we have a decent crowd, probably one of the bigger crowds of the league at the moment, of the season. Yeah, the age is not going to... Yeah, it's just going to be quality and class, I think, in this game. The age is not a factor. Unless, because they're old, they start pulling up with hamstring injuries or something after 1 sprint.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can't... In terms of the lineup, I got a feeling he'll keep the same lineup because we've had a week to recover. We're getting the match fit. Muller probably could have kept playing, but he subbed him off. And most of these guys are match fit in the starting lineup that we had this week. The only question mark is did Jurjevski come in for Aquilina, but why? Because Jurjevski is a bit of a liability with his hot head. And he won't be able to get
sent
back.
Off in the last one.
Sorry? Yeah.
Got sent off in the last one. Rash kick out.
Yes, he does stupid things like that when the guy's like 32, 33, right? He should be like a leader on the park. But Nick might have to have a talk with him, have some rakia. I got some in the cupboard, man.
That's a bad idea, man. I got plenty in the cupboard. Don't you worry about that.
I think with Aquilina, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I think we'll see a similar lineup. I can't see why you'd change his lineup. It's a winning lineup. You got some good weapons on the bench. I can't see why you'd change it. To be honest, you want the guys like Muller, Cox, and Otrisi starting and getting their combinations right and putting pressure on their back four on the defense straight away and testing Redmayne straight away. I know. Yeah, we need to start getting more shots on target. That's one of our biggest weaknesses at the moment. But if we're getting goals from our defense, from set pieces, and our wing backs are having shots, there's getting shot, and backers is having shots, and Doran's is starting to shoot from outside the box. You got half the team having shots from outside the box or in the box, so that is really difficult to defend against. You can't just focus on one player like your big number 9. He's the only one going to shoot. It's like all these guys are going to shoot, so that means that they're going to have to be like Sydney's going to have to be on their toes the whole time because we've got dangerous guys that can shoot from anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, though, my only thing I would just to touch back on Aquilina Georgievski, the only thing would be is the difference between either Georgievski is too much of a hot hit to start a derby, or Aquilina the grand game might get to him. So it really depends on how he thinks they'll perform. But in terms of lineup, I don't think it'll change because the one thing Sydney do have, apart from age, is they've aged together, as in like they've been for the most part. The core squad has been playing together for quite a while, and we're still a very, very fresh team. And the formula seemed to have worked over the weekend on Friday, so I think it'd be good. And that's the thing. That's it. That's the team that's for the first time in a long time showed some grit and determination, and that's exactly what you want going into a derby.
I mean, we've seen in the last 3 games that I alluded to earlier on that this team can come together and fight hard for a win or less a draw. I mean, when we played in the first quiet Sydney derby, the first ever silent Sydney derby, halfway through last season, it was a bit of an eerie one because they went up and then it was sort of like became a bit of a stalemate, and then we conceded by a lucky deflection off Yeboah from some shady back passing, and somehow that game finishes 1-1. Now, the one thing I will say, whilst I do agree with your point, Tats, that Sydney FC have been playing together for many a year, and yes, playing together does grant you a lot of experience, and you basically have a sixth sense of where your teammate is going to be. We know Ninkovic can just ping a pass, not even look over his shoulder, and he knows someone's going to be flying off their wing, so really have to look out for things like that. But the fans in this game as well, if there's only going to be 20 or 30,000 of them, they're going to have to be loud mofos to get either team over the line, because whilst they can play together behind closed doors, there's that same intensity isn't there. The intensity, I mean, we've seen it so often that a derby will finish and you'll see the players hugging and having a laugh and chit-chatting after the game. We can get pumped 5-0 and they're still having a laugh or whatever. We don't want to see it on the pitch. Yeah, if you want to do that shit, do it behind the scenes. Go into the change rooms, have a laugh, take your piss takes over there, whatever. But on the pitch, at least show like you give a damn. And I think that the fans, the way they interact, the way they portray their voice, they basically send the direction of where the game's going to be. So if Sydney FC and the Cove and the Wanderers, RBB, if they're going to be up and firing, they're going to be up and firing. But we know they're not going to be up and firing because there's no active support, but there are still fans in the stadium. So we just need to be louder than the opposition, and we just need to make sure that this team knows that they're fighting not just for the 3 points, but also, you know, for the overused and cringe term bragging rights of the city, because I don't want to go back to typecast where it's a new season and Sydney FC just keep pumping us, 3-4-0 and we just sit there and cop it. I want to keep this undefeated streak going now for at least a season or two. By the time the old guard from Sydney FC go, and they have new guard come in, and then they have to sort of readapt as well. And hopefully by that time, we'll have had our core for a while, and then we can start playing our brand of football, and then we can be the dominant force in Sydney Derby at least.
Well, it's going to be pretty hard as a fan, or at least a Wanderers fan, to try and make as much noise as possible anyway, because I bought tickets today, and the seating plan, basically that front, that lower tier, the one that's closest to the pitch, it's not available to us. So they've actually put Wanderers Active in the second tier up in the back.
It's a bit louder though, because you're undercover though, aren't you?
Yes,
we are undercover, but like when we were protesting, when we were going non-active, that's where we went up. But that is kind of shitty. Like when I saw that, I was like, come on, you want to be able to yell at the goalkeeper, you want to be able to yell at Redmayne from the front. So like I know that article came out, Rigari's article today came out, and like Dorrans was basically talking about like it's basically a pleasure. Like he's getting his mates text him like you're so lucky to be able to play a derby in front of fans because they're not getting to do that. But it's like it's not actually like it's even when it wasn't COVID, it wasn't going to be an Old Firm derby, and then now we're like it's going to be like 20,000.
Yeah, same in Australia, right? Like that's
the worst place. Plus, I mean that place, if it's not at full capacity, looks horrible, sounds horrible anyway, and we're not even allowed to go up to like 30% capacity. So it's not going to be what they're hoping for, but it's better than nothing. Because I was at the Silent Derby, and it was the worst thing I've ever been to. I wish I never went to that game, but I had to work.
Oh yeah, that was. It doesn't feel like a derby when it's like that, eh? Like I've been watching the Serie A for the last 2 months, and it's just I'm watching like it's just no fans. It's like you don't have that. Like football without fans is nothing, like they say, right? And it's so obvious, especially when you watch it on TV. It's like yay, and it's like and Ronaldo scores and he does his mad celebration. It's like there's no one cheering. It's like you can hear the guy screaming on the bench, like.
Yeah, we could. I mean, we could hear them we could hear them just having a chat from the media. It wasn't even just like yelling at each other. It was just like it felt like a training practice. You know, when it's like no one around, you can hear them having a word.
So it's 20,000. That's better than nothing, right? So, and there'll definitely be a chance like springing up, and despite you have to wear a mask and all that sort of stuff, there'll be some atmosphere, but nowhere near the best atmosphere we've seen at Sydney Derby.
That's what you're gonna be hearing.
Hey, maybe we'll make more noise like that. Who knows?
Maybe everyone will join in. I'm not swearing. You can't tell that I'm swearing.
I think we just need Labunda in there, Nick, just jamming for 90 minutes, man. And if people want to spring a chant based on the jam, I think that's what we need to start doing.
We're not even allowed to bring instruments to even Bankwest Stadium, dude. Like if we bring them, we have to play them sitting down. It's like you can't play a drum sitting. You can't play a drum sitting down, buddy. Last I checked,
MacArthur had drums in Bankwest Stadium.
Sitting down. There's one drum and they were seated. So we can do it seated, but we know we don't do things seated. And I think basically the majority of rules, and it's like, okay, well, if we can't do it how we normally do it, you want to, prop up this league, you want to make it, the big thing that it is, let us do it our way. Oh, no, you can't do that. Well, then we're not doing it at all, so.
Yeah, the standing sitting thing has never, it's just like, doesn't make sense to me. Like not that I go out clubbing at all, but we went out for like a friend's hens night and we had like a booth, but as soon as we stood up within our booth, we're all in the same vicinity. It's just like 10 of us. As soon as we stood up, like security came to sit down, I'm like, mate, if I'm going to get COVID standing and I'm going to get COVID sitting, like it's not going to make a difference, buddy.
You can about to lose it.
I've said this on my personal pods and rants. I've said this many a time. It's the dumbest thing. You have a bar stool and you're not sitting on it, but you're kneeling, or rather leaning on it. So you got half an ass cheek on, one foot on the ground. That's okay. As soon as your ass leaves the seat, all of a sudden you're susceptible to COVID and every other disease known to man. Like it's terrible. And when you're standing. When you're seated, it goes over your head, but when you're standing, it hits you in the face. That's the trick.
Yeah. I've been to RSLs for farewells like recently in the last few months, like people leaving work, and you go in and say hello, everyone. They got like their reserved benches, like the seats in a quiet. There's no one there, right? It's a Wednesday night in Chatswood, like there's no one there, and so you stand up for a bit to say hello and all that sort of stuff, and it's like, and you get the security guard coming around. Oh, you need to be seated. This guy is wearing a mask, like a chin diaper, like his nose is still sticking out and half his mouth is sticking out. And you're telling me I got to sit down? You're not wearing the mask properly, man. It's like, Oh, it's hilarious, and I see Nick's frustration. I understand why they're doing it, but
It's like
Yeah.
the whole thing is the sitting, standing thing. I just don't understand it.
Yeah,
It's-
it's in the
that
same
to me
space,
doesn't get like Tat said. If you're gonna get it standing, you're gonna get it sitting anyway. What's the point?
especially in your own.
Yeah, and also like where I fully feel, and I don't envy like any of the A League organizers at the moment, anyone trying to figure out what kind of schedule we're going to have, match day schedules, because it's a mess. I'm not like, there's no point in even reading out the letter, because like you had mentioned in the notes, like Perth haven't even played a game.
Yeah, do we have a Perth team?
Really?
They haven't played a game.
Do
I
they
did
exist?
not
Is that kind of
even notice.
Does Perth as a state exist? I mean, Western Australia as a state even exists? I don't know. Are they even part of us anymore? Have they finally gone off?
Haven't they
But they're still
seceded already?
They're not last yet because their goal difference is 0.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, exactly. But like, I don't envy them at all. But this at least, like, it probably wouldn't have been hard to allocate like a designated area, 3 people, 4 people, active support, play drums in this area. Nobody's around you. Do you know what I mean? Like, for the sake of what we can, we're trying to salvage like what we can from this league and from this season.
Nothing here.
Yeah.
Nothing up here.
No, I
It's-
think there's too much going on that this is kind of not their main concern, but it should be. It should be like we've just said it. Fans make the game. It's like
yeah,
anyway.
it's
On that, let's wrap it up. Otherwise, we'll be ranting on about this for far too long. Are you guys going to the game?
Negative.
Oh, this thing. It's actually a double header derby as well. The
It
women.
is, yeah.
So
Well, we copped it last time, so
they
hopefully
played
we
2
can
weeks
win out
ago.
this
They
one.
played the derby and they're playing again.
Wait,
It's like-
yeah, they just played like 2 weeks ago, man. What the hell?
That's right. They played a
Week one.
after game, and we got
Yeah.
smacked. So now it's like home and away. It's like home and away, like 2 weeks apart.
Yeah.
It's like the only
We
two
might win an
teams. In,
aggregate.
Hopefully.
the only 2 teams in the city. No, I won't be attending. I'll be in this very room, live streaming again, just ranting and raving like I did for the last one. I tend to enjoy it actually. I get my frustrations out. So if you are watching from home,
That's why Nick is so calm during our weekly podcast now.
I've got my frustrations out. Yeah, no, I actually enjoy it, but yeah, no, I'll be watching it from home. It would be nice to go, but just the whole travel to ANZ, get transport, and a lot of people with this whole mask business and all that sort of shit. So I'm just not bothered to actually go and attend. And as much as I'd like to, not being active at a derby sucks, and I'd rather just stay home and watch it, to be honest.
That's curiosity. How much were tickets?
It was, you know what? It was this thing. It was like pre-purchase tickets, so they haven't actually given me my tickets. I think it's like based on like maybe the game won't go ahead. But Ticketek also made me pay $8 to be able to have a full refund if it is cancelled, based on like their COVID rules.
Do you get that
So instead of
$8
paying-
back?
No, what? I paid an extra $8 for like refund insurance for like COVID insurance. Essentially, it's like
Yes.
because you don't know
So-
if the game's going to go ahead.
So you
So the
paid
tickets were
$30 plus $8. So do you get $30 back or $38 back?
nah. So I get the whole thing back. So
Okay,
I
so-
bought tickets for how I've got all my children. So they were all $24. $24 was concession.
Tats
And then it
got
was $30.
kids.
Yeah, all my children. And then there was $30 for my ticket, and it was $8 to get a refund on the full transaction.
For the full transaction. And plus
I
your
was like-
transaction fee as well on top of that.
What about?
No, I don't think that. Funnily enough, I don't think there was a transaction fee this time around, but they got it out of me anyway because they charged
about
me $8 to get my ticket.
Mariners charging like $30, $35 or something for the away trip or something like that. I saw Ethan posted online. Shout out to Ethan
Really?
Gallagher.
Newcastle did $10 last week. So
Yeah, something ridiculous. It's like, man, they're coming first and they just want to price gouge everyone while they're still leading the pack. Like, what the hell,
no,
man?
but they've been price gouging us for like 3 seasons. I mentioned that
Yes,
on
you
this
have.
a few years ago, right? It's like,
Always, yeah.
now you realize we bring people, and you're gonna. It used to be $18 or something to go to a Mariners game. Now suddenly it's $28, $30. Like, man, I'm not paying that much to go to Gosford. Like, and then your stupid transaction fee on top of that. It's just ridiculous. Like, I'm not paying $35 for an away game in Gosford. Like, I'm not paying $35 for a ticket in general. $20 should be enough for a general admission away ticket. That's it. Like, that's the maximum. That should be. I don't know why these teams are like $30, and then when Central Coast play Wellington, it's $20. But for us, it's $30. Like, man, what the hell is this? Like, this is bullshit. And I think we're doing the same as well, which is not fair either. It should just be a blanket rule across the board, across the league. $20 maximum for a GA ticket.
20's plenty.
20's plenty.
Trying to make us. Well, they're gonna try and make back whatever they lost last season. But I'll be at the game because it is like 15 minutes away from me now. I'm keen. How excited I'm about that. Ooh. So was Para. Oh, no, never mind. I'm not going to talk about Para because Stephen's like down there.
Stephen walks there. Hey, there you go. I'm still 5 minutes away. Then I got to park. He's like, all right, I'll start walking in 5 minutes. I was like, what the hell, man?
But Stephen has a child too, so he'll be like, yeah, I'll be leaving in 10, but really that means he'll be leaving in like 20.
He just he leaves Lisa behind, then she'll just come whenever.
She comes separately.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, I'm not a part of this. Game days, I'm out. Anyway, do you guys want to do score predictions or don't want to jinx it?
Ooh.
I really don't know how this game's going to go. I actually don't even see this as a derby. I just want us to win 3 points to get our momentum going because we're in the top 6 now. Yay, we're 6th with a 0 goal difference. So, look, I don't feel derby nerves yet until I start watching videos of stuff that I did and then I get nervous. But I just want us to continue the trajectory that we started on game 1 and game 2 and we got the 3 points. I want us to not lose, but winning will be good. So we just go up the table and just get that going, right? I think once kickoff happens and, I watch Nick losing his shit in his room or if I'm next to him at the time, then the nerves might come in. But at the moment, I don't feel derby nerves. I just want us to win because I want us to do well this season.
Yeah, you can sort of sense the game after the first 10, 15 minutes. You can't really gauge the outcome of where it's going to go. It's only been 5 or 10, but you can sort of see who's playing where. If we start and you can see we're playing defensively, we're in our own half and we're just letting Sydney have the ball, that would indicate that Robinson said, look, give them the ball for the first 5-10 minutes, try and stifle them in there, try and stop them from getting through, and then see if you can nick something and then make something happen from that. And then I think eventually the game just by its own life, it just falls into place where then Sydney will say, all right, well, we can't just keep attacking nonstop. We've got to retreat as well. Then they'll drop deep and then we'll go forward and then they'll try spring. And I think it's going to be one of those games. And, without Lafondra there, it gives us something less to worry about, but we still have to worry about them because, as we've said, they've been playing together for, 3 or 4 years consistently. They've won championships back to back, and they do have some good players as much as we want to slate them. Objectively looking at it as a neutral or as a football fan, yes, they do have some talented players, and it's our job to show that we're better than them and that Corica is basically just a what do they call Bielsa? Or no, not Bielsa. One of these other managers, one of the Premier League managers, like a glorified PE teacher. Solskjaer, sorry. So, rival fans call Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a glorified PE teacher. So we want to show that Corica inherited a good squad and just kept the same tactics that Arnold implemented. And we want to actually show that, well, your manager isn't really as good as he says he is because we've actually outsmarted him this time. And that's what I want to see. I want to see Robinson look at this and say, how are we going to break him down? How are we going to score ourselves a goal, and how are we going to keep them out? That's essentially.
We'll just watch our last 3 games, right, against them. We were one of the few teams that actually got into their face. That's how we beat them last year. Everyone else shows them too much respect, and forget it. Like you get into their face, you push them back, you press high, you don't let them get away, and then they get flustered. Like, oh shit, well, hell, what? We have to actually work for this.
Yeah, they're not used to working properly. That's a good point as well. Same thing.
That's why they struggle in the ACL as well.
Yeah, if the game kicks off and we retreat, then that's good for them. If the game kicks off and we push forward straight away, then they might be thinking like, okay, it's going to be one of these games. All right, let's go.
And those 5 young kids that we just mentioned earlier, they want to put themselves in in the history books for Wanderers as well. Like they want to have a big Tats wants to have a big game. Doesn't want to concede against these guys. Bacchus is really got yellow carded multiple times in this derby. Like he knows what it's about. Russell and Aquilina want to keep their spots. Like this is a big game for them. They come from the academy. They're Western Sydney through and through and all that sort of stuff. Like this is their game to really shine again. Like put myself in the history books. Like
man, I hope the club is playing that ad. I hope the club is playing that ad all throughout the training. Like, what have you done for this club? What have you done for this club?
Right.
That's what needs to be playing all week. I think this is the first game I'm going in not nervous as in I don't think we're going to get pumped kind of nervous. Like I'm like, all right, this could be a very even game, and it could be anyone's game. So I'm actually really excited to watch this game. I'm sure once I get there, I'll be like not watching, pretending like I need to go to the bathroom just because I can't handle watching the game, because that's what I do. But on that note, let's not do predictions. Let's just let the team speak for itself. I think let's wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of Around the Block, the supporters podcast of the Western Sydney Wanderers on your favorite podcast app. Check us out on socials, Around the Block, on all apps, and send us feedback, which is feedback@aroundtheblock.com.au. This has been Around the Block. Thank you from myself, Tatiana, and Stephen.
Goodbye.
Peace out.